there was a very interesting dialogue that was left out, and it helped the viewer understand why Subaru tried so hard to help Julius. And no, it's not just because of what happened on episode 13, but because of something that has to do with Subaru's power, returned by death, that and other omitted details in this video.
Now that I've met the human quota, it's time to speed things up with the synthetic voice. But before we start, a big thank you to the channel members. Thanks to Yarp, who just subscribed to my Spanish channel. Meanwhile, on my English channel, I have Loco Felix as a new member. Thank you all so much. But now, let's get started with this. Welcome to all the cut content from episode 7 of the 4th season of ReZero. Today's episode covers the 2 remaining chapters of Volume 22. Unfortunately, it doesn't manage to adapt the interlude. And honestly, I doubt they ever will. Because the interlude only tells us about Manurva's life. And while Manurva's life is a cool addition, unfortunately, it isn't something that affects the plot of the 4th season overall. Either way, since I know you want to know what Manurva's story is about, her starts like this.
Did you know that behind the patches of the Witch of Wrath hides a really tragic story?
Today, I'm going to tell you the story of this witch, a story that, surprisingly, the author has actually kept unlike the others, since we still don't know if those are canon or not, and I've already talked about all of them on this channel in case you want to check them out. It's said that the Witch of Wrath wasn't born as a monster, but as one of the most sensitive people imaginable. At first, she was a young woman who spent her days crying because her heart simply couldn't handle seeing other people suffer. Her biggest pain was not being able to forgive herself for being too weak in a world full of wars. Since the sadness never seemed to end, she eventually cursed her own fate after realizing that crying alone changed nothing. That's why she started wishing for strength, not to hurt people or take from them, but a strength so overwhelming that it could finally put an end to all violence. She wanted to force people to stop crying, because she knew that if she stayed weak, nobody would ever listen to her. She kept asking herself why humans hurt each other so much when there had to be better ways to live. Watching everyone cry pushed her to train her body through unbearable pain until she gained an iron will and unmatched strength, enough to place her almost on the level of a god. With that power, she stepped onto battlefields to stop wars, dedicating all her strength to crushing violence, destroying sadness, and wiping out malice, beating swordsmen and mages alike, taking down anyone looking for a fight. But then a terrible paradox appeared. The more she fought, the more violence spread around her, creating an endless cycle where everyone answered aggression with even more aggression, covered in blood and lowering her fists. She looked up at the sky and broke down, feeling like everything she had done was meaningless because the tears never stopped falling. In that moment of complete helplessness, something inside her changed. Her mind turned white and her heart turned black when she realized her tears weren't coming from sadness at all, but from pure, uncontrollable rage, wrath itself. She became furious at a world that forced innocent people to cry, and at the fools who refused to stop fighting. So she wiped the dirt off her knees and rushed back into battle with a completely different mindset. Throwing herself into the conflict again, she started punching every fighter she saw while screaming at them to stop fighting, telling them to look at the sky, listen to the wind, smell the flowers, and spend time with their families instead. Her fists, strong enough to split the earth apart, and her kicks, powerful enough to shake the heavens, moved only so others could keep living. Every time Manurva landed a punch, the soldiers' wounds would miraculously heal, the screams would fade away, and the fighting would finally stop. When the tears disappeared from the battlefield, people felt grateful, but she was already gone. Manurva never had time to look back, because her dream of creating a world without tears forced her to keep running forever, throwing healing punches until the day nobody cries anymore. Sadly, what the witch never realized was that using the world's mana like this caused disasters in other places. Disasters that killed the same number of people she managed to save. Eventually, someone used the elves as bait, and Manurva fell into a trap that slowly drove her insane. Sometime later, the Witch of Envy would appear and kill her, but that's a story you still don't know yet. Remember that I've started a cut content series on the channel. And that was Manurva's story. I want to clarify that even though we now have the past of all the witches, we don't know if the backstories for all of them are still canon. I know someone might tell me that if they didn't come out in the light novel, then that's enough to stop considering them canon, but I think we are actually in a limbo. It's canon until stated otherwise. Plus, since these backstories were published, new details have been added to the lives of the witches, and what has been said so far hasn't contradicted the pasts I narrated in my short videos. Even so, I urge you to remember that if the author feels like saying one day, out of his own Japanese whims, that the backstories he wrote 10 years ago are actually canon, then who are we to contradict him? I also want to take this chance to say that if the backstories sounded a bit strange and cryptic, believe me, it's because they were narrated that way. I only tried to explain them in a more digestible form. But still, if you want a bit more context, I recommend reading the original chapters. But talking about today's episode, Not much was cut in the first scene where Julius was resting in the green room. There were a couple of funny comments, like Subaru ordering Patrash to bite Julius if he tried to escape, or Subaru mentioning how Otto understood Patrash. But by far the most important thing, which some Fujoshis probably regret was cut, is the part where Subaru, seeing that Julius was already feeling better, thought to himself that seeing him like that made him believe that maybe that embarrassing moment from episode 13 actually served a purpose. When leaving the place, Emilia suggests freezing the door, though she later says she was just kidding. But the most interesting and creepy thing is that Subaru and Emilia figure out that even with the beating Reed gave Julius, Reed held back a lot to make sure he only caused the minimum amount of injury. Subaru figures out instantly that he cannot let Julius find out about that. Afterward, when arriving at the room where they discuss how to pass the trial, and where we also see Ram complaining about Julius's attitude for letting his pride blind him, nothing really important was cut there. Though we could maybe consider important the part where Shala reveals that in the past she tried to kill Reed, but he defended himself as if it were nothing. Or the part of the story where Shala says that once they reach the top of the tower, everything will be revealed. I think the only really significant thing left out is the part where the group decides they will use Emilia's tactic to defeat Reed. Meaning a tactic where they convince Reed to accept a challenge that benefits them so they can beat him at his own game. Kind of like what Emilia did when she negotiated with the redhead, so he would agree not to move and only focus on blocking attacks. They were arguing until Subaru's stomach rumbles from hunger, and the novel gives us a bit more context about the group's situation. First, it clarifies that if Subaru's stomach was so hungry, it's because since Subaru fainted, he hadn't actually eaten anything, meaning he was asleep for 2 days. And even when he got up on the 3rd day, he barely ate anything until it became night. They also tell us that although they can create infinite water thanks to mana, the smart choice would be not to do it, since they are using mana from the environment, and the environment is contaminated with miasma, so they would be drinking dirty water. So how could they drink clean water? Fortunately, the healing room creates purified water for them that doesn't go through that toxic process. At least for now, they had their liquids covered, but unfortunately, they couldn't say the same about food. So, they are effectively in a race against time. On top of that, it didn't help that as soon as Shala started eating, Emilia was so moved by Shala asking to be her student that it activated her maternal instinct, and she started giving her more food, which made Subaru figure out that their supplies might last less than they thought. Also, in the dinner scene, Julius should have been apologizing to everyone for his actions. Everyone would forgive him except Ram, who before doing so, yelled at him that his temper tantrum put everyone's goal at risk. Honestly, this is a moment where even I don't know who to support, because while I understand why Julius reacted that way, the truth is that Ram also has a point about how Julius shouldn't have gone alone. Then there is a funny fact where it's mentioned how Emilia helped cook tonight's dinner alongside Ram, and it's revealed that Subaru has also improved his cooking skills over the last year, and they also say Julius is good at cooking. What's so important about this? Well, nothing, but I thought it was a fun detail to add. Later, when Subaru goes to switch guard shifts with Julius, here the novel says something that some anime viewers might find confusing. It says that the room doesn't allow many people inside at once, and that's why either Julius was inside or Subaru was. That's why we see in the anime that they are forced to rotate guard duty, meaning if one goes in, the other leaves. If you are wondering if anything was left out of this chat between Julius and Subaru, the answer is yes. But it's not a big deal. General essence is kept, and by essence, I mean Subaru worrying about how Julius is doing after Reed's beating. Then he would fall asleep and end up chasing the pigeon, and of course, some thoughts he had were cut, but they weren't relevant thoughts. Afterward, in the rooftop scene with the pigeons, something happens that I know you'll say is silly, but when the next seasons come out, it will have a lot of relevance. This is a spoiler I will leave in the comments, but here I'll only mention the non-spoiler part. You see, in the novel, it's made clear that the birds coming out are of different colors and shapes. But if we look at the novel illustration and then look at the pigeons in the anime, we see that no matter the medium telling the story, the pigeons are uniform in each version. So whose fault is it? Honestly, this is a mystery that I feel very few in the community have pointed out. The mystery of why. If the light novel emphasizes that the pigeons are of many colors and different sizes, this difference isn't reflected in the illustrations. Sometimes I think maybe Tappei just forgot to change that description, and by mistake it ended up in the final version. Another option is that something actually affected Subaru and Anastasia, making them see the pigeons differently from how we see them in the illustration. But I don't know, that sounds a bit too complex. Either way, I'll leave the topic for you to think about. Later, in the chat between Subaru and Anna, there are some interesting thoughts from Subaru, like Subaru remembering that he has bad experiences with the night and with a group of animals. The bad experience at night refers to the time Rem killed him in Arc 2, and when he talks about the group of animals, he means my siblings. These bad experiences make him compare Eridna to Echidna again. And it's because Subaru just accused her that she brings up the strange nature of his identity. A casual conversation they had was that while this seems like a good place for Shaula to shoot, it actually doesn't look like the place she was shooting them from when they arrived at the tower. So they deduce there must be windows in certain places of the watchtower. But so far they haven't found them. Something I consider really relevant that had to be cut was the hypotheses Anna makes about the pigeons. For now, she only says they don't look like artificial pigeons, though she states she would like to dissect them, while Subaru points out that maybe they can use the pigeons as a food source, in case they stay longer. Later, when Julius discovers the secret, I think the most interesting thing left out are some lines from Anna that finish convincing Julius, where she mentions that Anna herself had actually been keeping the secret of her existence for years. Finally, the novel helps better understand why Subaru asked Julius to vent to him. He did it specifically because of these dialogues I'm showing you on screen. Basically, Subaru, due to his experience with the worlds left behind because of his power, feels he can understand the feelings of Julius, who remembers things that everyone else forgot. Still, this is something you can figure out if you think a little about the anime, but if you didn't notice, I'm telling you here, and this is the fact I mentioned at the start of the video. After the chat with Julius, Subaru runs into Ram just like we saw in the anime, and while a large part of their original chat is kept, a small moment was removed where Ram tries to comfort him in her own way by giving him a little flick on the forehead. It's also revealed that Ram had tried to see if she could face Reed by taking advantage of the fact that it was night and he was sleeping. But halfway through, Ram realized how useless her attempt was and decided to head back, which was when she ran into the protagonist. After that, they say goodbye and Subaru enters the library, where the narration would end. Afterwards, Subaru wakes up and apparently has no memories, because he acts as if he had been teleported. And that would be all regarding the anime. I know I haven't mentioned as many things as other times, but today the anime was just very faithful with the adaptation. But it's time to see the author's tweets about the episode. First, the author comments on something he had already said many years ago, or at least I remember, well, it was already being discussed when I joined this fandom. The author said that if Reinhard had been present, the conquest of the tower would surely become more complicated because he would fight seriously against Reed. Second, today many of the things I left out from the episode were interactions between Betty and Subaru. Interactions that the author confesses he usually adds without realizing it. Third, the author makes a comment regarding one of the facts I mentioned before, that the spirit of the healing room doesn't like having too many people inside. Fourth, Tepe made me realize something I overlooked about the real reason Ram tried to go to Reed's floor. She did that because she is desperate to reunite with Rem again, which is why she was bitter toward Julius since he put her goal in danger. And because of this bad precedent, she tried to see if she could trick Reed one way or another. But that was the most relevant part. Afterward came the break time, which was the continuation of last week's break time, but basically they only animated the remaining part of the side story this tale is based on. I think the only original thing was the final frame where we see Julius writing a message in the Lugunian language. A message I've been able to find translated, and if you're curious, it says what's on screen. I have nothing else to say. I've been exhausted since the novel chapter and the anime episode hit me at the same time. So that would be all for today. I hope you liked this, and I'm writing this almost at midnight on Wednesday. Let's hope Tape doesn't drop a new chapter tomorrow. See ya.